Okay, so let's kick off then. And we've got 30 people on board, we've got 40 booked, and we're going to be looking at the IoD Surrey 859 yet again in a remote version, and probably a remote version for some time to come, given what's going on in the world outside. So you're all very, very welcome, especially those who are maybe sort of coming to us for the first time or the first time after a long time away. So you're all very, very welcome. I'm going to have Simona is going to be driving our slides. So thank you, Simona. And if you just move it on, that would be great. So the IoD 859, what are we doing here? Why do we do this? Well, it all is driven by our sort of foundational values of integrity and enterprise, and sharing insights, ideas, inspirations, directors helping directors, because better directors build a better world. And that's what we're about here. So this is about sharing insights and inspirations. And the way we're going to do that, Simona, is going to be asking sort of and answering questions, and being as open as we dare to be with each other about what works. I'm a great believer in us sharing the practicalities, the nitty-gritty of what helps us as small to medium business owners, solopreneurs, what helps us to be better. So minimal theory, maximum practical application. And thank you. The framework for today is sometime in breakout rooms, which we'll organize to have our own discrete conversations within the breakout in the framework of questions which I'll be sharing, and then sharing your room insights in plenary. We'll do that twice. We've got a 4x4, which is 4 minutes of really insightful information, and our 4x4 driver this month is Rod Mountain. And we look forward to Rod's contribution there. And then we have a couple of minutes wrap up, and I will be sharing some of the news around the reorganizations that have been going on within the IoD. So that's that. Thank you, Simona. So our sort of our conversation framework today is about how we reinforce our own resilience. We've touched on resilience every now and again, really, because really we are the business, and it doesn't really matter if we're driving just ourselves and some associates, or some outsourced providers or staff, and it doesn't matter how many staff we've got. In the SME world, we are the business, and if we're not up for everything, then the business will suffer. So how we manage our focus and our energy, how we manage our resilience, how we sort of drive through and get stuff done is really, really important. So what I'd like us all to consider is how we manage our own resilience. And I will share the 4 questions on the slide again, because I'd like you to be thinking about this in your conversations, these 4 questions in your conversations. And I'm just going to get hold of this. There we go. Okay, so how do you manage that resilience? What is resilience? How would you define resilience? And because it seems that lots of people associate resilience with strengths, I'd like us to be sharing, how important strengths are, or we consider strengths to be, in managing our own resilience. And we might also have some fun and games around how we would define strengths if we've got the time. So how important are strengths to drive that, and how would you define strengths within that context to enable you to be more resilient? And finally, if we get time in this round, it would be interesting to get some sense of one or two things that you are doing personally that you have found helps you to reinforce your own resilience. And I don't know about you, but you know, the Corona coaster has just been amazing, because sometimes I can eat, you know, anything that's put in front of me and work my way through it. And other times I'm really not there. I'd rather do the dishes or do something else, you know. So, and I'm sure that's probably the same for all of us. Maybe some of us are constantly on an even keel, and that's great. And if you are, please share that. But I suspect that a lot of people are like me, riding the roller coaster, the Corona coaster, and you know, struggling and winning, probably sort of 10 times each in the same day. So with that, that's the framework. And I'm going to ask you now to move into your different rooms. So I'm going to create some breakout rooms, and we've got 30 on the call. I'm going to keep it to 5. So I'm going to create six rooms, and we'll have about 15 minutes. I'll give you a minute's notice. All right. I might pop into your rooms. Please don't even really have to acknowledge me. I just want to get some sort of feedback from the rooms as well. Otherwise, I'm sitting here on my own for half an hour, which isn't great fun. So I'm going to create the rooms. I'll give you a minute's notice, and I wish you well with your conversation. Hey, Tom.
Hello, mate. All right.
Yeah. Sam, it's good to see you, mate.
What room were we, Richard? I always forget.
Room 2.
2. Thanks, mate. Thank you.
That's all right. It looks like we're the only ones back.
Oh, they got 13 seconds to go.
You can do a lot in 13 seconds, Richard.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, we're all getting back now. Look, there we go.
Advantages anyway, yeah.
Okay, so where are we? Yeah, we've got everyone back. So, excellent. So in no particular order, room the first with under 1 minute, your key insights and information that you want to share.
I'll take it then, shall I, Richard?
Go for it.
We thought bounce back and the ability to cope with challenges to enable us to keep going. It was how we defined resilience. And the qualities are flexibility, positiveness, both of the mindset and self-awareness, which obviously are very important to relate to our resilience. And in terms of sharing the things that we found worked, were connectivity, family, even if we have to mix with them on webinars, and in my case, gardening, getting out there and just getting away from everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So bounce back, yeah, that's probably a good basic definition of what resilience could be, the ability to sort of dust ourselves off and get back in the saddle again. So yeah, absolutely. Room the next.
As we were 2, I'll go second. My logical brain. So yeah, all of the above and a few other bits. So we also thought that bounce ahead ability was probably right as well, because once you've bounced back, what are you going to do now? So having a plan in terms of where you're going to go. There was some conversation about what resilience actually means and how we interpret resilience. There's this kind of expectation that we're all resilient, aren't we? And if you're not, why not? And actually understanding, you know, what that actually means and what that means to different people and how you work. Knowing where you are, so exactly where are you in the kind of Corona coaster journey, and then how does that fit around your clients? Managing expectation, really key. You know, people will expect you to work quicker, you know, or differently in different circumstances. Manage your clients' expectation. And I guess it's that the thing that kind of builds it all together is the things that we've talked about. So resilience over adaptability.
I love the idea of bounce ahead ability and the whole thing about coming back stronger. And I ran an event last Friday around the Gatwick airport and bringing that whole region back up again, and they're going to face 10-12% unemployment around that area very, very shortly. And that sort of the coast to capital, for those of us who sort of follow the LEPs, the coast to capital sort of blueprint really for the future is coming back bigger, stronger, greener. So yeah, bounce ahead ability. I love that, Dominic. Thank you. Table the next.
That was me. We're table 3.
Okay,
so we talked about bounce back as well. So that was our kind of definition. We talked a lot about kind of mindset, the fixed versus growth mindset, and the ability to pivot your business. I think there was a session an IoD session on pivoting your business at some stage during lockdown as well. We talked a bit about support networks, and I think Mark's lovely phrase of a purpose buddy.
How you doing, Clive?
It's just Richard's dragged his star group back with him. That's all it was.
Oh yeah.
And that's what happens when you put so much talent into one room, Richard.
I know.
It was bound to happen. Yeah.
Oh dear. Well, we're all coming back in. That's great. And the final person will come in. There's 29 of us right now, unless somebody sort of decided they're going to make a cup of tea or something. Okay, so in no particular order, Room the first.
Oh, right. Off I go. Yeah, shall I go? So, yeah, we were talking about a couple of really good points. We liked Jackie's comment about having an accountability group. She made a really good example of talking about with some peers some things you need to do for an hour, then doing it in the next hour and a half, then coming back again an hour and a half later to tell people you've done it. So I thought that was really interesting. I liked a couple of other points around keeping things in perspective and making sure you acknowledge that you've had a positive day, and that actually your day, even though it felt a bit shit, was probably 99% better than many people in the world. And then finally, just on the point of vulnerability and candor, Tracy made a really interesting point about employees of SMEs don't really want to hear bad news about how their boss's business is going. So striking that balance between candor and being vulnerable is really hard, because you don't want to add to the stress and the burden and the worry of your team. So yeah, it's a tough call, but yeah, those are our three key points, I think, Richard.
I think there's always that balance, isn't there? And I think there is still, if we hold ourselves to a value around integrity and honesty, then sometimes there's stuff that you can't necessarily easily sugarcoat without sort of coming across as being sort of a denier or worse. So yeah, it is a tough line, and employers or business leaders have got to do it. So, Room the next.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We felt.
Hang on a minute, Derek. You did it last time, mate.
Okay. Well, one of the others in my team can do it. May, do you want to?
No, I'm happy for you to do it.
Okay. All right.
Actually, okay. No, the main point is this sort of, I am personally still in shock about the whole thing and trying to cope, and sort of dawning on me the aspects which will be permanent and the aspects which will be temporary. And I think people haven't given enough time to looking ahead as to how it's going to affect them personally, how it's going to affect their businesses. And then we talk about all the people who are going to be unemployed. but we haven't thought about what are we going to do with them and how can we, the community, the councils, government help, and also the IoD. I mean, all the sectors that need help. So Derek was saying that in Surrey, there are 5,000 people short of, carers, people in IT, nursing, etc. And yet there doesn't seem to be very much being done about pulling it all together. It's all sort of very, very short term at the moment. And that is a very big concern. And it adds to the uncertainty that we're all facing.
Absolutely. I think it does then come back, doesn't it, to what are we doing? What are we doing about it? And a very good friend of mine, a neighbour down the road, what he's been doing within his business, he's also been taking interested people good people who want to find an opportunity, and employers who want to provide an opportunity. And he's doing this purely, it's not his business, but he's a very well-connected, seriously sort of successful man. And he's being an honest broker, in whatever time he's got left. I mean, his wife is the chief exec of Thames Water, for God's sake. I mean, they're successful people, and he's finding time to do that, because you can't rely upon the government or just random chance by individuals. So I think that's a very important point. We must be a force for good, and give. Anyway, enough of that. Room the next.
Shall I go next, Richard?
Go for it.
No problem. So in our room, we covered quite a lot of stuff. So I'll try and sort of condense that down as best possible. We talked about positivity quite a lot, and I guess the triggers of stress that go along with that, people understanding themselves. We touched on, the old school, what are your vulnerabilities and weaknesses, job interview style question, and how that's kind of adapted to psychometric testing. And probably if you've ever been through one of them, sometimes you learn a bit about yourself from the psychometric testing, and when things are more difficult, you can pull on that. The big one that I guess came up was, what was the major change? Well, working from home in a lot of cases, that was the major change, and how technology, communications, and one person set up a buddy system, so they sort of spoke to somebody every day around lunchtime or so, and how that worked really well in getting a bit more personal engagement, and then as a business owner, understanding which people were really struggling and perhaps they needed to reach out to. So that was a good one. And I'll just touch on, Michelle obviously went through a reasonable size merger fairly early on in it. So she was saying actually the upside to that was the communication, like they had Monday morning planning meetings, Friday afternoon sort of drinks and things like that, and how normally that would be their office, but because it's on a digital platform, actually they've learned the wider team from 3 or 4 locations, and built probably greater relationships or quicker relationships across the team than they would have done in face to face, which would have taken more time to arrange and get diaries in there. That probably covers most things, I think.
Cool, excellent, Sam. Thank you very much. Room the next.
Right, Richard. Unfortunately, we'll have to listen to me again. I was kind of thrown into the ring. So the first thing we came up with is asking the question, or asking of your staff, employees, or anybody else, how are you doing? And in the current times, I think this now justifies an honest answer. But for the person asking the question, which may have been either a little bit of a rhetorical question or a fairly flippant question in the past, is now listen to absorb and respond. I think the tail end of how are you is also to stand in front of the mirror and ask yourself, how am I doing? And it's a little bit of self-reflection on where you are at, and that also justifies an honest answer and some listening and absorbing. Second point that we came up with, Simon is talking about focusing on the next better thing than where I am now. So in a situation where things might be dire, or there's certainly some vulnerabilities, is what's the next best thing of where I am now? And then focus at working every day and every single action you take in terms of being able to get there. So setting those milestones so that there is some success along the way in order to get to that end goal of being in that better place. exercise did come up, whether that's dog walking or any form of exercise, but it's really about space. It's about getting your space, breaking the routine or in the office, and getting the space. And then I suppose the final one Ian mentioned was you've got to check in before you check out. So before phoning to check out how the business is going, check in with the individual to find out how they're doing.
Absolutely, and I think that sort of that checking in is a vital part, and that goes hand in hand with the how are you, and that not being a rhetorical question anymore, and really understanding that everybody is carrying a burden, and now more than ever, the job of a leader is to make sure that that burden is recognised, and even then asking the question like what can I do to help, whether that's a contractor or a member of staff, a colleague or whatever, have you got everything you need? What can I do to help? We're all in it together.
And then doing it.
And then doing it. And I think that somebody else mentioned it as well. There's more to do, even though the economy is slowing down. There's more to do. So room the next. Any other room?
I'll go if you want.
I go with our room.
Richard. Go for it. Go for it, Sue. Then yeah. Paul. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we talked quite a lot about EQ and sort of contributing to a business, looking at people's strengths. But I suppose the short answer, the short thing we came out with is identify and focus on your own strengths, and then your vulnerabilities sort of fall away. And Rod, obviously, with his Steffi graph, focus on what you're good at, the forehand or the backhand, can't remember, and everybody sort of focuses on that and they get scared of you. But yeah, identify and remember what your strengths are and really focus on those. And then everything else seems to not be quite so important.
Absolutely. Cool. Thank you. Paul, yeah?
Yeah, I got delegated or volunteered again. So
okay.
We had 2 ex-accountants in our group. So we thought actually doing a cash flow every couple of weeks just to check when you were going to run out of money financially was actually quite therapeutic and helpful. And I related the story when I was an accountant. I used to say to my clients, look, it's only money. And if it is only money, to some extent, it's a third world problem. So there was that. Anne said, friends are not allowed the C word. We didn't ask what the C word was, but that was okay, just so you stay off the topic. Stay away from the news and some social media, because it can suck you into a mire of despair. And I think lastly, Des made the point that if you've had a redundancy, to some extent, you've got antibodies for resilience. If you've been through some real difficult time, then another difficult time, you're stronger, and I think you're more prepared for it. So that was an interesting reflection.
Absolutely. Super stuff. Room the next. Or are we done? I think we're all done. Excellent. So super. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask that we share our screen again. So Simona, can we share the screen? That would be super. So somebody mentioned earlier on about, I think it was Clive Stone, bend with the wind, don't allow it to break you, which is why I chose the particular photograph for framing or representing the frame for our questions today. So thank you very much. And Simona, if you could just move the slides on and move it on to the next one as well, please, that would be cool. So I'm going to pass over now to Rod Mountain, who is going to give us his insight on reach in 4 minutes. So Rod, take over control. Simona will stop sharing. You take over control, and I've got.
So am I going to share my screen with you?
Yeah, you share your screen, Rod.
Right. Okay. I think that's the one. Is that? Wait a minute. Not sure which one to. I don't know. Is anybody seeing that?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Yeah, all clear, Rod.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Okay. 4 minutes, Rod. maximum value starting now. Thank you.
Okay. Well, this is a quote from Richard's email a few days ago, and I don't think anybody would object to. Everybody knows he's not kidding about this. In business, we learned that you're only as good as the number of questions you ask and the quality of your questions. So I'm going to ask a few questions in the next 3 minutes, whipping through fairly quickly. And I suppose the question burning in all of our minds at the moment is, what's it going to take to thrive in the next year, in the next 5 years? A year ago, we would not have settled for survival. So why would we, the most resilient sector in society, settle for being smaller than the challenges we face? That's one question. If you were Aladdin and a genie's just appeared from your magic lamp and you had only one wish, not 3 wishes, what would be the best wish you could possibly ask for? And the answer is unlimited further wishes. So why is this important? I'm going to ask you in a minute. I'm going to say it another way. We've been talking about resilience and extensive networks. I'm going to focus only on networks, because I think from networks stem all sorts of other strengths. You get help, you get attitude adjustments, you get support, you get a feeling of support from other people, and you get ideas that you wouldn't have thought of before. So we're going to focus a little bit on networks today. And if Paul McKenna is right, and the best and highest use of our ability is to add value to our fellow human beings, we have to ask the other question, which would be, what would be the most magnificent use of your next 5 years? How can you add the most value to your fellow human beings? What a question, eh? What a question. How do we add value in this crazy COVID changing world? How do we use this as an opportunity, not just a threat? How do we continue on our chosen value-adding path without allowing COVID to define us, to determine our outcomes? How do we keep on a path and not get knocked off? Henry Ford once said, obstacles are those things you see when you take your eyes off the goal. So how would we convert skills and competencies into adding value to other people? What are the achievements that mark you out, that mark us out, that no one else could have done? What is unique about us? The question for your own sanity, basically. What is my unique combination of qualities? What makes me special? The wonderful thing about Tiggers is I'm the only one. Well, you are unique, and it is something that you're going to focus on, because when you're talking about adding value, one of the options that we can use to further maybe our financial resilience, but at the same time add value to other people, other companies, is investigate the possibility of being a non-exec director. Many people are taking on non-execs at the moment, not salaried people, and that can be something that you can use to add value to businesses, and yourself. Leverage. How do we leverage our unique our USP, and turn that into value adding for other people? Imagine the reach of a network in which each of us benefits from all of us. As Einstein once said, the true sign of intelligence is not knowledge, but imagination. Imagine if that special network, that genie in the magic lamp, could proactively access on your behalf all other professional networks. How would it feel to be part of a support system like that? And I'd like you to ask yourself again, imagine the most magnificent use of your next 5 years. How can you add value to your fellow human beings and get those rewards that Paul McKenna was talking about? As Andy Murray once said, July the 7th, 2013, 9 people won Wimbledon here today. I'm just one of them. It shows that it's only ever achieved by teams. Winston Churchill would have told you that. So I think we ought to leave it with him as being someone who had a unique ability to enroll people and use the network and the teams around him.
Thank you so much, Rod. 4 minutes, 30 seconds, absolutely solid. We'll accept that. Brilliant. That's cool. Could you stop sharing your screen, please? And can I ask Simona to sort of go back and share hers for a moment or two. Useful. Don't allow ourselves to be defined by COVID. We're all Tiggers, and I love the fact that each one of us is wonderful and you know, magnificent. What would it take to be magnificent? Not just thriving, but get into that mindset where it is magnificence. So absolutely solid. Thank you so much. So Simona, if you can just go through to the one more and one more from that would be super. I'm going to ask you please to complete the online questionnaire, and I'm going to copy that out again for you so that you can see it. So I'm going to put that in there. Please do hit the link in the chat for that online questionnaire. I'm really keen to get not just your sense of, you know, how you thought today went, but also what you might want to see in the future. So please do hit the link in the chat, and if there's anything in the chat that you want to save, then of course just click into the chat area, Control A, Control C, and then copy it into whatever sort of recording system you have. If you could just move on, Simona, to some parish notices. I realise that it is already 8:63, but just a couple of minutes really. The IoD, as many of us will know, has gone through some really amazing changes recently, completely reorientating its focus, and rightly so, back onto members. We still have a very solid policy team who are doing magnificent work. They do speak more regularly than most other organizations, with number 10, number 11, with the Treasury and business. So we've got a very good policy team. Our professional development arm is up and running and revenue earning, having been interrupted with COVID. But more importantly, there's been a fundamental reorganization. It has meant losing a lot of good people from the IoD, and the IoD is now repurposed. So outside of policy and professional development, there is now a central shared services team at the IoD. And that central shared services team has got one job, and that is to make sure that every branch is fully equipped to deliver massive value to members locally. So the whole focus of the IoD has changed to a branch primacy and therefore branch member primacy. We've now got money coming through. So every branch will have a budget and be responsible for the husbandry and curation and investment of that revenue from members to maximize member value. So myself and my volunteer team of ambassadors will be getting together shortly to map out 2021, because we've now got a steer. We've now got a reorganized IoD. We've now got a budget and devolved responsibilities and authorities to drive, as opposed to sort of ask for resources, to drive our own resources for your benefit. So please do feel free to reach out to me. I hate the word, but contact me with any ideas and thoughts that you might have around how Surrey branch can add even better value to you as a member. I want to hear what you've got to say on that, and we will be taking things forward with great confidence into 2021 and beyond, now that we have the wherewithal to do it. There's been a lot of work. I led a team nationally around the membership experience and the value proposition, and that team included IoD staffers and volunteers like myself to create the branch operation model and manual, and that wasn't given down on high. that manual was accepted by the executive and the board without edit. So it was created as one IoD, and we're looking forward to a very, very good, solid future. We're well positioned. The IoD is well funded, and we're well positioned to deliver locally now, much more so than ever in my history, my membership history of the IoD. So I'll be letting you know more in my regular. You will see that I send out emails twice a month now. I'll be keeping you much more up to date on the local implications in those fortnightly emails. So watch out for those. And if Gatwick is something that is in your orbit of influence, and let's face it, Gatwick and Heathrow are big drivers for the South economy, then do check out the interview with those 4 leaders that I had last Friday. Some of the contributions there were just stunning. So I'd commend that to you. It's on the IoD South YouTube channel, or just go to my LinkedIn profile and you'll see that I've just posted onto it. So it's my last, I think it's my last post. So you'll get the link in that as well. So listen, thank you so much for your contributions this morning. It's been great sharing. I love going into the rooms and just sort of hearing what's going on in the rooms. So that was great. And sorry if I interrupted some of your thought processes on that, but that was cool. Please do complete the evaluation. Let me know what you want your IoD to be doing for you and for people like you. So, as we were saying earlier on, there's a lot to do, and probably even more so to do now than there was in November last year. Let's keep up for the fight and move on forward. With that, I'm going to wish you all well. Have a great Friday. Have a wonderful weekend. Give yourself that space and that permission to sort of do other stuff and get refreshed for Monday morning. So with that, thank you, and we will see you soon. Thank you very much indeed.